According to very opinionated news host and sports personality Colin Cowherd, at 9:30 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday night, UFC 202, boxing died. Take the biggest breath you could. Take it in. Oh, that's not a big breath.
Yeah, I'm slowly dying of sickness.
Yeah,
by
Jason.
The way.
Jason, it's
I
at
feel
12 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday. Jason Rubin
died?
was carted. No, I'm not going to say that. Was carted off the hospital. But either way, Colin Cowherd, who, by the way, I've vocalized before, I actually really like his opinions. I really like his delivery. It's almost like he's constantly giving a monologue, and I think that he does have a teleprompter and everything written out and scripted. He does go off script a few times, but which is something we never do. There's no one behind the camera telling us what to say. Because if there was, then we wouldn't say things like penis. Either way.
Francis, you had the opportunity. First of all, if there's someone behind, you can't say that. Usually, if there's a teleprompter, you're not allowed to go, fuck, shit, ass.
I know, my mom's
But it's
watching.
the internet. That's the point.
My mom's watching. She doesn't mind penis. Oh, I'm not going to even say that. You're an idiot. All right. Either way, Colin Cowherd vocalized his thoughts on UFC. Now, he's kind of came 180 on this. It's like when he first started covering sports, he wasn't the biggest fan, and I think he had a few back and forths with UFC fans who we know are very, very loyal, rabid fan base, passionate, and he had a few back and forths with them, but it seems that he's come a long way in terms of how much he appreciates the sport, and he specifically talked about UFC 202 and how life lessons were learned after this fight, and I really did like what he had to say. It wasn't the best breakdown of the fight. Don't expect that from him. I don't know why people still go in expecting him to break it down round by round.
I'll talk
the guy
about that
doesn't
after.
do that. But anyway, let's take a listen to what he had to say.
And I know some of you think UFC is too raw. But there are 4 or 5 things in my life, big businesses that have died. DVDs, newspapers, landline phones, and Saturday night by 9:30 Pacific, boxing died. That was the final nail in the coffin. Boxing's dead. I think this network even has some fights. I hope you watch them, and please patronize our sponsors. But the new ritual drama in America, the trilogy coming, is McGregor Diaz. And I know there's too much blood for a lot of you, and I know some of you would call it gross, vulgar, inhumane. But there were a lot of life lessons there. That was Willem Dafoe. That was Hannibal Lecter. That was manipulation, holding on, cultural war. McGregor was the Ali, the showman, pushing back at authority, Dana White. Ali pushed back at our government. Diaz was Joe Frazier, a working class ethos, a regular guy, toughest guy in the neighborhood. And what I watched was goosebump, riveting, the best fight I've seen in 20 years. The best fight I've seen in 20 years.
Yeah, and he's right on a lot of those counts. For one, I think it probably was the best fight of the last 20 years. I've watched it now 3 times over, even though I said I would never watch McGregor fight again, which is funny, I guess. Regardless, though, I can't name one boxing fight, and I'm an enormous boxing fan, and I can agree with him on that. Boxing is dead, and here's how I know that, and here's how I can agree with Cowherd on this one. Watch the bottom line of ESPN. Yes, I watch ESPN, SportsCenter, regularly, actually. And when they have a boxing name come up, and there's a record next to that boxing name, a Chocolatito Gonzalez, for example, and he's got an undefeated record, and he's fighting potentially an opponent that could beat him. When you have Gennady Golovkin, one of the best knockout specialists we've seen in years, fighting Kell Brook, an opponent that could possibly be, and I can't believe I'm saying, nobody can tell you one thing about those boxers. Yes, there is a niche audience for GGG. There are people who will turn into Friday night fights on ESPN. I'm not saying there's a zero boxing audience. What I can say is that the UFC is here to stay for a long, long time. And outside the barbaric nature of the sport, it's still going to bring in new people, because those who don't want to watch Conor McGregor or Nate Diaz inside the octagon will follow Conor McGregor or Nate Diaz outside the octagon. And the last time I can think of that was Mayweather at the height of his career, when he was at 40-0, 41-0, around the time he fought De La Hoya. Around the time he fought De La Hoya, was similar. Barbaric in nature. Boxing is barbaric sport in nature too. It's bloody. There's knockouts. There's injuries. It happens. However, people started following Floyd Mayweather, the person, as a celebrity. There are no boxing celebrities.
Yeah.
There are a lot of UFC celebrities.
Well, there's no organic feuds. There are feuds. Trust me, I understand there's boxers that don't like each other. I come from a very
UK boxing.
amount of knowledge when it comes down to UK boxing, and I still believe that there is hope for UK boxing. I think there is personalities in there that dislike each other, and they're doing what they can to try and promote this. When we had Tyson Fury and Klitschko, it was interesting because he's a very bold character, but the fight itself wasn't as exciting. Two heavyweights moving pretty slow, throwing sluggish punches. I've never liked the Klitschko boxers. I know they are specialists in their art, and I'm never going to criticize them for that, but they won't cast a large net the way that Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz will, because they'll drag in fans who never thought they would be fans of the UFC. They'll drag in fans that are just in it for the entertainment value. It's barbaric. All fighting sports has a sense of barbarity to it. It doesn't mean that this is because it's a little bit more extreme, that's why it's doing well. It is exactly the reason that there's characters. There is genuine hatred. There is feuds. People want to root for the good or the bad. Whether or not you have arguments on who is both, it doesn't matter, because therefore you will go with one side and root against the other. It's the same in all sports. We want to see competition. We want to see passion. We want to see technique. And at the moment, the UFC is doing a better job promoting, getting in touch with what young fans of the game and these sports want to see, and that's interaction in social media, that's interaction online, that's interaction in interviews, that's just all of these things that go along with it. I don't see a personality in boxing, apart from Floyd Mayweather in recent terms. Like Kell Brook and Amir Khan had somewhat of a feud. It never happened. We have, at the moment, a fight set up between Kell Brook and GGG. Do they hate each other? Is GGG going to come out and spit some fire at him? It's like, that's not the be-all and end-all. It will be a good fight, and I'll be interested in it. But I'm talking about casting a wide net. That's the only phrase I can think of when it comes to the UFC. They're dragging in fans of the sport who never, ever imagined they could be fans. I actually watched with one this weekend who has never liked UFC. And what he's seen was an example of the beauty of what combat sports has always been about. It's overcoming adversity. It's using your own ability to try and get one up on your opponent. It's adding to a spectacle that you never even imagined could get any bigger, and delivering more than anything else. Actually delivering. Mayweather and Pacquiao had all the hype in the world, more hype than Conor
more
McGregor
hype,
Diaz.
more money, more press, more everything.
And I think that's partly the reason.
Tanked.
I'm not saying that I would even go as far as saying that was even more of a nail in the coffin, a larger nail than Conor McGregor Diaz.
I think that was the absolute downturn. That's where you kind of knew it wasn't going to be coming back, even though, again, I used to defend boxing, and I think for the last 2 years on this own platform, I would defend boxing as a sport that could still survive because of its power to stop an entire globe and have people watch. Mayweather, Pacquiao in that example. When McGregor and Diaz fight for a third time, the world is going to stop.
Yeah.
It will be the most talked about fight. It will be hyped up more than a boxing fight would be nowadays. So on top of everything, you get more on a UFC card. You also get it for free sometimes. UFC Fight Nights and UFC on Fox, if you have a cable subscription, and you can usually watch it some way to stream it online, and you get big names. You would never in a million years see, at this point, Manny Pacquiao or a Timothy Bradley or any of those fighters, any boxer of even C-list caliber, fight for free on cable. I mean, you do get PBC, the Premier Boxing Champions, and it's not doing that good. And you got guys like Keith Thurman who fought there, but that's like Keith Thurman is not the star power that the UFC has. So when you get UFC fights like Rafael Dos Anjos coming back to fight for free on UFC Fight Night, that's something special.
Yeah.
And then if you do want to watch McGregor Diaz, it's not that expensive.
So that is a great point, and it's just going to set us up, I think, to just beat away any of the negative comments that will come out, because boxing has a niche audience that just will never, ever give in to
It's
this.
like,
but
to me, it's like baseball. Boxing and baseball can fight it out for like the niche audience of dying sports.
But
And you're talking to the biggest boxing and baseball fan in the building.
But you mentioned Dos Anjos coming back to fight for free. You know where no athlete will ever be allowed to fight for free while it's controlled by the promoters? Is boxing. Dana White is the puppet.
Right. Yeah.
He will make things happen, and people will hate him because he's the face that you can place your blame. Oh, my fighter never gets a title shot. Oh, my fighter never gets this. But you know when the athletes are delivering, you know when you will get a fight that you want to see, like a McGregor Diaz, like a McGregor Aldo, like a John Jones Cormier, pending that Jones gets his shit together. You'll see it in the UFC. We asked for Mayweather Pacquiao. We wanted it for 10 years nearly, 8, 9, 10 years. But whilst there's the back and forth between the promoters, the back and forth with the managers who's in charge, McGregor makes his fucking decisions. McGregor makes his decisions. He's of course going to get input from his managers and those in his camp. Of course he's going to get input from Dana White, who might put some form of restriction. But if McGregor wants a fight, he's got a better chance of getting it in the UFC than what Kell Brook or what GGG's got in boxing, because promoters are the thing that's suffocating boxing. It always has been. They want to try and get their own way. They're like agents. They want to keep their pockets full. They want to have the fight that's going to...
despicable.
I
agree.
And what they don't realize is, you know where your pockets remain full is when you give a fight that the audience wants to see, when you sell out stadiums. The UK has the best chance, I would say, out of a lot of the different industries of boxing. Yeah, I would love to see a cross the water feud like a Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis. I would love to see that happen again.
Fair.
But they have rivalries in there. People dislike each other. They have, ever since we've seen the back and forth between a Kell Brook and an Amir Khan. Yes, that's my example, but there's tons more. Just let the fight happen. Give the people what they want to see. Fill out a stadium. Get that audience that McGregor drags across to Vegas. Get them in your fucking stadium, and then maybe, just maybe, you might have a chance.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Well, Colin Cowherd could be right. Do you agree with him? Did boxing die on Saturday night at UFC 202? And boxing fans, I'm sorry, but I think he is right. So comment below, like, favorite, subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. It's all in the description box below. We'll be back soon.